Now we have to talk a little bit more about alternative energy sources. What's beyond wind and solar that is so well known, and there is a lot: biomass, hydropower, geothermal, tidal, waves, ocean steam, osmotic pressure. Yes, we will talk about all this only in a short slide, but to give you an idea what is possible, what might be evolving during the next century, I don't know. So we should strive that. So first we have to look into the possible sources that are here. And so far are, at the baseline, 3 different basic energy sources. The most intensive is the sun. So sun has by far most potential, and the sun reaching the earth is 175,000 terawatt continuously. So that is far beyond the others. The others are radioactivity in the underground and some forces from the moon. So, but they are absolutely small compared to the sun. But they may be in some cases interesting. So what do we need? We need about 20 terawatts. That's the energy that is running through our society and the world with about 8 billion people. That is the constant energy demand. It's not only electricity, it's also powering cars and factories and heating and cooling all the places we want to have. So there are some parts of the energy coming from sun, then it's reaching the land. One of the big impacts is biological production, plants, wood, and so on. And don't underestimate the water circulation and the circulation of the atmosphere. Atmosphere is the point we take wind power, but we don't talk about that in the moment. So more is there in the ocean. There's also a lot of biology in the ocean. There are some circulations in the oceans, and there is some movement by the moon and also by the sun, to be precise. And in the underground there is generated heat that is coming up, and we could use that in geothermal ways. So that is it. There is nothing else. But yeah, let's look into the details. Now first, bioenergy. By the way, that was the first the first energy production at all. It was heating your food and heating some inhabitants at the very early day of mankind. And the bioactivity on land is 152 terawatt and another 63 are in the ocean. But by no way we can use all that, because we cannot kill and completely destroy the environment. We have to be careful because we have to have food, and we have to keep our environment in some way a little bit natural. We cannot cover the whole world with wheat fields or something like that. So a small amount of that is used, and here, for example, in Brazil, you see a more or less modern use. You see they cut sugar plants, and then they burn it and they convert that to methanol, and that is the most widely used gasoline for cars. So they have a so-called E85. That means 85% of their gasoline is methanol. That's really a lot, and so they don't have to import oil. But don't ask me what's about the environment doing this. So there's another power we didn't go into that deep, that is hydropower. Hydropower, if you collect all water that is raining on the continents, you can add up 12 terawatts. But that's very hypothetical. For example, see here in the Black Forest, we have the very small sources all around in the forest, but you can drain them all and drain them all the way down to the ocean, and that's all over the world. No, that's not working. But we have today an installation capacity of 1.3 terawatt. We have more installation capacity, of course, than we can use, because sometimes we have not enough water in the river, and so we have 0.5 terawatts produced by hydropower. That's quite a lot. It's already in the range of 10% or 5% of a theoretical possible amount, and it's very hard to go beyond that. In Europe and US, there's just everything used where you can put a power station. Africa has still some potential, maybe some more in South America or at some remote areas in Greenland and so, but then usually you run into some environmental problems, and it is not the best idea to build dams all over, because you flood valleys, sometimes beautiful valleys. But think about that, sometimes it works out. The Three Gorges Dam in China is the largest dam in the world, and it can produce 22 gigawatt. That is something like 22 large power stations, coal or nuclear power stations. And that's quite a lot. They had to move about 1 million people out of the valley. That's the downside of that. So it never comes for free. More or less, there is typically the reservoir, water is going through a penstock, there is a turbine in there, and then the river is flowing again. So next topic, geothermal energy. Geothermal seems to be very interesting because the thermal flow is fascinating, 50 terawatts. But this thermal flow from inside the earth to the outside is very good distributed all over the ocean, so we can't use it at that places. But at some places in the world it is concentrated, where you have volcanoes and where you have hot spots in the underground. And so here you see in Iceland, for example, you see one of these geothermal power stations. What they do, they collect by pipes, they are deep in the underground, hot water or hot steam, and then using that for power production. So Iceland has a very high level on geothermal energy, and so by the way, if you go to Reykjavik in the city, the streets are heated by geothermal energy, so they don't have to wipe the snow away, it's melting by heat. That is fascinating, but it only works on a few spots. And if you are a lucky one and living at one of these spots, you can see that the price of the energy is quite low. You have to pay 5 cents for this geothermal energy. Why do we have only such a few installation? The reason is definitely it is only possible in some places where you have volcanoes, or you drill very deep. But if you do the very deep drilling, then the costs are going up. You always find a hot spot if you go, for example, 6 kilometers deep. But drilling 6 kilometers deep is not an easy way. And so there are only a few places in Italy, in California, in New Zealand, in Japan, and in Iceland, as we have learned. Also in Italy, by the way. But it all builds up to 10 gigawatt. That is not a big number in our 20 terawatt world. You see, the last century, decades, the thing is growing. Now we are have about 12 gigawatt installed, Now let's see what the future will bring. Another interesting way to generate energy is to use the moon. And the moon produces the tides, and the tidal power is harvesting that. So the theoretical power that is there is quite impressive. We have 3 terawatt. That would more or less work out for all the electricity we need on Earth. But there is a big problem. You need tidal barrages. One of this example here, I think that is in South Korea. And what they do is, when the tide goes high, water is running through a turbine and going into the lake. And when the tides are going low, here the water is running back into the ocean. So you have here a more or less conventional hydropower station, but you use not water running downhill, you use the ocean water that is going up and down every 12 hours by the way. So you have 2 tide waves every day and 2 lows every day. And in between you can use it for generating the power. There you need area in the world where you have high tides. 10 meters or even more is preferable. There are areas with up to 17 meters by the way at the Canadian coast, and I think at the Korean and North Russian coast. And then you can build one of these barrages and use that. There is another interesting idea, that is, if you put between, you know the North Sea, and between Scotland and Norway, you could close that, and you know every day the North Sea is 2 times filled and getting empty. And if you put there a lot of underwater rotators, as in this picture here, you can produce the energy and huge amounts of energy in the every day, and very precisely predictable, because the moon is a celestial object that we understand well. A problem is, as always, this maritime technology. First of all, you have to build this in the underground or in a sub level of the water, and down there you have a harsh environment of salty water and of animals and a lot of stuff that you don't want to have in your machines. And you'll run into some environmental problems because fish and whales and so on don't like that too much. So there is no large project of this type at the moment available, but maybe in the future someone can build that. The North Sea would be a good place to do that. So then we come to wave energy. Wave energy is fascinating because if you are at the beach or if you are riding on a ship, you see that waves can be incredibly high and very strong, especially if you are in the North Atlantic. And I have crossed the North Atlantic to Iceland once with a boat, and if you see this 5 meter or even more meter high waves, you think that's a lot of energy. And it is a lot of energy, 63 terawatts. The energy is tertiary energy, primary sun, secondary wind, and tertiary wave energy. So it's going over 3 levels, but you have a lot of area to collect that energy because the oceans are covering about 70% of the surface. Actually, what happens is the water is in some way circling around, and you can use that moving water by whatever interesting ideas people had to do that, to collect these waves. There are many different ideas to do that. I just don't know any area where less people had interesting ideas to collect the energy, but none of them really works commercially in the moment on a sustainable base. The reason is the harsh environment of the ocean. In the ocean you have salty water. That's the first problem for your steel construction. The second thing is that you have a lot of animals there who want to sit on your buoyant things, and they will disrupt working or reduce the efficiency, and so on and so on. And whenever you build something like that, you have to have at least 20 years of deployment. That is typically very hard to do. Now, a last one that is not widely known, that is the osmotic effect. What's that? First of all, the osmotic effect is not a small effect. We have a potential of 27 terawatt. That would be, by the way, sufficient to have the whole energy done by that effect. What's meant by that? So if you have 2 bottles of water and you have a membrane in between, then this membrane separates the water, and if you have on the one side salty water, so there is salt, let's take this one, salt, and that is sweet water, then the water is going in the direction of a higher concentration of salt. So where can you take the sweet water? Yeah, all the rivers that are going into the ocean. And in the process of diluting this sweet water in the salt water, we could produce energy. By the way, not too less, 0.75 kilowatt hours per cubic meter of sweet water. So keep all the rivers not flowing into the ocean and convert it to energy. Maybe it's working. The first site that did that is in Norway, in Statkraft, the Statkraft company. They produced one of these factories. I don't know if they're really economic, but it is a first trial to do that and to have a turbine finally that generates the energy. So that was a short view into some additional ways to produce energy. Thank you for your attention.